This week is Autism Awareness Week, and of course, as some of you might know, I'm autistic, so I thought I might make a video talking about some of the things, financial and household related, that I struggle with, that people might not expect, and that people that don't have autism, like, you know, neurotypical people that don't have a disability, kind of forget. Like, they'll tell me to do something and I'm like, okay, I can, but it's difficult for me. And they're like, oh, well, why? And they don't show understanding. So I'm going to make a video to kind of raise awareness on these particular topics that affect me, because there might be someone with autism watching that can relate to this and say, oh, I have trouble with that too. Or people watching this that know someone autistic saying, oh, this person has a problem with this, I should be more understanding. Or something like that. But anyway, without further ado, let's get on to the video. So, let's start with the financial problems then. So, when I was a kid, a child, a teenager, before I got my own bank account, basically, I would, for example, say to my mum or dad, can I use your card to buy a birthday present for someone online? And they'd say, yeah, sure. And I'd say, what is the amount I can spend? And like the maximum. And they'd say, oh, this amount. So, okay. So I'd be like, okay, I would stick to that. That's fine. But I used to have this problem where if I saw an amount of money like on a screen in the virtual world, I would forget that it was real money. Because let's say if I took £10, British pound sterling, out of an account, just in general, I'm like, well, has that gone? Where's that gone? What? Because you don't see it. And for the large majority of my life, my parents' job, they had a fish and chip shop, which meant that they earned money through cash payments. Like, they would get given cash. Like, this was before debit card was super popular. So we didn't have a card machine, it was just all cash. So there was that, and whenever my parents would give me money, or whenever I would pay for anything, I would see the amount of money in my hand. So if someone says to me, that's £10 please, at the counter, I could see it, and I could give it to the cashier in exchange for what I purchased, and I could see the transaction. Online, I couldn't, because I'm like, well, I see an amount on the screen, it's like a total that it comes to, and I'm like, okay, and I just see numbers, and I just click yeah, and it feels, I don't know if abstract is the right word, but it just feels so non-tangible. Like, it feels like it's air, because I'm like, well, how? I can't see the money being taken out of anywhere, but I actually could. But it was on the computer and it felt virtual. It's like when I'd play a video game with virtual money, let's say Animal Crossing, I'm looking at an amount of money and I'm like, oh yeah, it's not real. And I had a real hard time in the beginning differentiating real money online and pretend virtual currency online. I had a real trouble with it, and no, I didn't do any extortionate spending because of it. I did manage it, but every time I'd make a transaction with my mum's card online, I'd be like, I don't feel like it even, I just don't get it. I don't feel like it's even real. I just don't understand. Because I'm looking at a card. I'm like, well, the card looks the same whether it's got no money on it or lots of money on it. You know, okay, it could be a different colour. It could be like, instead of like a basic bank account, it could be like a premier account. I get it. Okay. But a card, it's just a card. If you spend £1,000, the card looks the same. If you spend 10 pence, the card looks the same. So it was very hard for me as an autistic person to get my head around that. And obviously now that I've had my own bank account for a few years, I've had to really try and get used to it. And now, if I see money on a screen, I'm like, yeah, that is real money. But if I see money in, let's say, a video game like Animal Crossing, I'm like, oh yeah, it's fake money, I can spend whatever, it just doesn't matter. Because it's not real, basically. So then, household stuff I struggle with. I'm trying to remember as many things as possible, but let's say one of my family members is emptying the dishwasher and reloading it. If they make lots of loud sounds with plates and cutlery, that affects me. Like, let's say if my mom doesn't, when she's unloading the dishwasher, she gets a plate and she doesn't carefully put it on the table so it doesn't make noise, and she just goes dunk. That can affect me, and people don't realise it. They're kind of just like, oh yeah, I'm just doing my job, you know, and they do it. And I'm like in the background going, because it's difficult for me. And let's say if I'm peeling an avocado as an example, and I've got the knife, and I accidentally drop the knife on the plate or on the floor, it makes a loud ding sound, and it can really, it causes problems for me. And as well, the texture of food in general, like having to touch it, having to eat the food. Cooking is a little bit of a problem for me, because even something as simple as cooking a fried egg, and you get the sizzling sounds and the pop sounds, and it's all quite scary, you know. Or if you've got like a pot of something and it like bubbles over, or like the flames get too much or something. As an autistic person, I've found that so difficult. There's birds. Let me show you on my other camera. As I'm filming this, there are birds like looking in the window. Oh my god, they've just flown off just the second I went to film it. They flew off. But anyways, there were 2 massive starlings on the bird feeder over there on the window. But anyway, this is another thing with autistics, we get distracted really easily. But anyway, yeah, cooking is a problem for that reason, because of the loud pops and sizzles in the fire, and when I open the oven, it goes woo, and it's a lot, and it's scary. And no one I talk to about my struggles with cooking and household things, people are just like, oh yeah, that's just what it is, you just got to deal with it. And I'm just like, why do autistic people always just get told to just deal with it? You know, and it's really hard, because I'm like, well, if I didn't have my mum around to cook for me, and I lived on my own, which is what I'm desperate to move out, I swear to God, just in general for my own independence, but the pandemic is not allowing me because of job prospects being even worse. Anyway, that, if I needed to cook for myself and it was just me in the house, and I have to deal with all the sizzling and the pops and the oven going raw and the fire, and even when the microwave beeps to tell me it's ready, it makes me anxious and freaks me out. Like, it's a real problem. I've never spoken about it before, but it's a real problem. And I've got to somehow just manage and just try, and I do, but sometimes it could just be difficult. So I have to get someone to repeat the steps with me over and over. But then it's like, well, what about if I move somewhere else and it's got a different cooker? What am I going to do then? So it's, do you know what I mean? You know how there's this saying where, even for people that don't have a disability, you know when you go to someone's house and you have to use their shower, or like a hotel, and you cannot figure out the shower for the life of you, and it makes you feel stupid? but it's causing a lot of problems with temperature. Like, it will be like so hot that you can't use it, or so cold that you can't use it, and you can't find that in between. It's a lot. It's just a lot, you know. So there can be that, and then there's as I've just said, you know, the texture of food, the flavours. If I eat anything spicy, it's just awful for me, and I just can't deal with it. And there are just so many things surrounding food and cooking that are a real problem for me. And as well, there are other things that people just do not think of, like textures within the home, for example. You know, like the stuffing they put in dog toys, like squeaky, soft dog toys. That white fluff stuff. If you ever feel the texture of that, it's awful, and it's awful for me as well, and it's really hard. So if I need to pick it up, I'm like, okay, you know, so I have to kind of get a tissue and pick it up with the tissue so my hands aren't touching it, or I have to just touch it and just run to the bin, the trash can, and just run and just hope and just not hope, just hold it for as long, hold it for as little amount of time as possible, basically. And as well, it's a similar texture for emptying the vacuum cleaner. You know, like the ones that are bagless where you have to empty it yourself. Well, our vacuums are quite old, so there's a button that we push to release the door so that the cylinder that all the dirt and dust is kept in drops out into the bin/garbage. Well, ours is old, so it doesn't fully do its job. You have to kind of reach in there yourself to get some of the dust out. And the reason why that's so difficult is because the texture of the dust and the dog hair and everything that's been collected in the home, the texture is absolutely unbearable for me. And my parents don't know this because this is kind of gross, but I always clean it thoroughly after. But there's some kind of thing in the drawer that is used for pulling a cake slice out from underneath. It's like a triangular shape like that, and you use it, so when you cut a slice of cake, you use it to lift it out from the bottom. I've been using that to scrape the inside of the vacuum cleaner, like the bit that collects all the dust and dirt, and it's been great, but still I've had to touch the stuff inside, like the dust and stuff, and I just, it's really difficult. So now I'll try and get out of emptying the vacuum cleaner, and I'll kind of get my dad to do it. And he says to me, oh, why don't you just do it yourself? And I explain to him, and he doesn't understand. And a lot of it, in fact, everyone I've spoken to about the reason why I can't empty the vacuum cleaner is because they're like, what? And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, no, I really struggle. I find it really hard, and it will just affect me for quite a bit of time after. And I just need people to be understanding, you know. Most of the time, I forget that I'm autistic all the time. All the time. I don't remember most of the time that I'm autistic because I had a lot of help early on, and I'm not as, what's the word, my condition, it's a bit milder. Like, I've worked on things over time. There's stuff I can work on anyway, but there's some things that I just can't. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope it provided a bit of insight. And yeah, it's not easy, but I try my best. You know, I try to explain it to people the best way I can. If you know one person with autism, then you know one person with autism. You don't know autism as a whole, because the spectrum is so wide, and people have different traits and characteristics and severity levels with their autism. So for example, if I moved out, I could be fully independent, whereas there are some autistic people that can't. So it really varies. But anyway, like the video, comment if you'd like to, subscribe if you haven't already. I make other videos about autism, and yeah, see you in another video. Bye.